everybody, and welcome to the 13 Club podcast. We are at historic episode 10. We have officially entered the double digits. Thank you for joining us today on this lovely Monday. I am assuming it's lovely. I'm recording this in advance. It could be awful.
Yeah.
I'm Miramay.
And I'm Spectre.
And we are here to keep it spooky. What do you have for us today, Spectre?
We're creeping it real.
Oh my god, you went there.
I'm sorry.
I hate it, but I only hate it because I love it so much.
Yeah, you hate that you love it.
I hate that I love everything. That's the only way I know how to love is through hate at this point.
I loathe myself, but...
I mean... Okay, what do you got?
So, I was looking at stuff on the internet.
As you do.
I'm not really going to say where, and it's not because it's a porn thing, but it's because of a site. I was a site I'm not that proud of being on. But I saw this Instagram celebrity that I'm just, not going to name. She did this thing, which was a self-inflicted... Not inflicted. She did her own lip lift procedure. So what that entailed was she cut a little strip all around her lip and then stitched the top of her lip to the upper part of the skin that still existed. So she took a small sliver of skin from all around her lip and then she removed it and then she sewed her lip to the top part of where the skin now connected to do a lip lift. It also increased the surface area of her lip. But she did this herself. She did this to herself. And I saw the picture of it, and I was like, wow, that is really unsettling to me. Yeah.
But why? But why?
I mean, the results looked good. She did a nice job. I'm not throwing shade. I'm just I can't imagine doing that to myself.
Does she? Maybe I'm throwing the smallest amount of shade. I don't know who this is, but why does she have medical experience of any?
So I'll get into that. I will get.
Okay.
Into
All right.
So
all that to say, I just can't imagine that would be
doing your own lip lift.
I would be no. I would be I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I mean, I microneedle my face, which is kind of intense because it's like a tattoo gun, sort of, and it just pushes these needles all in your face, and that's kind of hardcore. But I can't imagine removing skin. Yeah,
how do you cut a thin strip like that?
I don't know. So
on
the website, which may be sort of a gossip website, somebody found a news article featuring this Instagram celebrity, and it is called "Illegal Tongue Splitting Procedures Exposed." And this is from BBC News, and if you look up the article, you will know who I'm talking about. Body modification artist, and this is written by Guy Lynn, Ed Davey, and Charlotte Franks, and I felt bad because in the last episode I did not quote exactly who I got it from, but I did post the article. So the last one was, if you go to ominousglitch.com, you can see exactly where I got my information for the Junko Furuta murder. We always do that. If I forget or she forgets, we always post the link.
Yes.
And we're not claiming that this is our original content. So
no.
It says body modification artists have been exposed carrying, and this is from October 2017, so this is basically
relatively recent.
Basically a year ago. Body modification artists have been exposed carrying out illegal and potentially dangerous tongue splitting procedures. Patients undergo the cosmetic surgery to achieve a lizard-like forked tongue. Two Backstreet Boys, practitioners were filmed by BBC London preparing to illegally inject anesthetic into undercover reporters. The exposé also highlighted a gray area over the procedure's legality, with calls for the government to legislate. BBC London was tipped off that numerous body modification artists were unlawfully injecting anesthetics as part of the tongue-splitting operations. This girl, from Poland, who operated out of Divine Canvas in Islington, told an undercover researcher that she would use the drug articaine to control the pain. Only a registered medical professional, such as a doctor or dentist, can supply this drug and authorize the dose. She explained, "You might feel a pinch, but it's nothing crazy, and the stitches will take 15 to 20 minutes to do all around. The entire procedure lasts up to half an hour." Sampo von Cyborg from Finland also offered his services for £500. He is one of the world's best-known body modification artists and claims to have carried out 1,000 tongue splits.
1,000?
Yeah.
Or is it 2,000? Because you're... Get it?
Yeah. Well, they started at 1,000, now they're 2.
Okay.
He admitted cutting the tongue in half and putting stitches. There definitely will be some nerve damage. Of the articaine he intended to administer, he said, "You just feel really shaky and really wired. That's the only side effect you have. Neither of the surgeons are medical professionals." Mr. von Cyborg's wife, Anita, who is his assistant, said, "We don't allow videos, surgically no needle or syringe in a photograph because that's the illegal part. The needle is so small that you don't feel when it goes in." The undercover reporters waited until the injections were actually being prepared before pulling out of the operation. Stephen Van Buren, the principal dentist at Islington Green Dental Practice, said that the effects of a local anesthetic could be quite hazardous to a patient. If you haven't taken a proper medical history of the patient and they have a heart condition, the anesthetic could actually affect their heart rhythm. The BBC spoke to 2 dental patients who suffered severe side effects from local anesthetics, including panic attack symptoms and passing out. It can also cause potentially fatal anaphylactic shock, which I'm sure everybody knows is if you have an allergy. Unknown quantities. That's the name of the next little snippet of the article. Dr. Anna Marie Rowland, MBE, who sits on the Council of the Royal College of Anesthetists, said, "Frankly, I was horrified at the thought that people are doing this without training and in the circumstances which don't look clinical or sterile." She was also worried that injecting unknown quantities of unknown drugs into people without any evidence of having the equipment available to deal with complications that may arise can be incredibly dangerous. Meanwhile, the BBC's investigation highlighted a gray area with the regulation of body modification, which may mean that the procedure itself is also unlawful. Instagram lady appeared to be acting under licensed laws for tattoos and piercing shops, with the tongue-splitting licensed as a special treatment, namely piercing. Dr. Samantha Pegg, a lecturer in law at Nottingham Trent University and expert on the legality of body modification procedures, said the government urgently needed to legislate such procedures. She explained, "Extreme body modification is not covered by existing law. We don't know whether an individual's consent is enough to make it legal. The practitioner could be committing a criminal offense. If it was properly regulated, it would help in terms of health and safety. Piercing and tattooing are both heavily regulated in terms of hygiene, disposal of needles, and so on. But there's nothing in place for these much more extreme procedures." A Department of Health spokeswoman said, "We are committing to supporting people to make informed and safe decisions about any procedure that they are considering and make sure that the person they choose is appropriately qualified, registered, and insured. The government is not planning any changes to legislation." Contacted by the BBC, Sampo von Cyborg denied injecting anyone, claiming he merely used an anesthetic gel and used a doctor friend to inject customers. Instagram lady did not respond. While Divine Canvas said she didn't work for them and never has. So then that kind of led me down the rabbit hole of some other body modifications that are strange.
Cool.
So this one is from Australia, and it says "Inside the Grey Area World of Body Modification," and this is from news.com.au, and it's by Natalie Wolfe. A week after a body modification expert was charged with a female genital mutilation, authorities have vowed to crack down on the grey area industry. In an interview with the Daily Telegraph, NSW Health Minister Brad Hazard, that's a funny name for this situation,
Heyo,
called the body modification industry the worst barbarism imaginable. This so-called body modification is just plain wacko and can lead to permanent maiming, Mr. Hazard said. My view is that these people are ruthlessly opportunistic. This is up there with the worst barbarism imaginable.
Again, they quote the same guy twice?
The same quote in the same guy twice. Mr. Hazard's comments come a week after Brendan Russell from the NSW Central Coast was arrested in his home, charged with mutilating a female's genitalia in 2016. News.com.au understands the cops were responding to a complaint from a customer who allegedly underwent a botched labia reduction. Better known as a labiaplasty, it's a procedure normally done by a plastic surgeon that involves cutting or reducing the size of the folds of skin that surround the vagina. A now deleted Instagram profile for the 37-year-old body modification artist said he had 10 years' experience in the field and showed off the work he'd previously done. Photographs of split tongues, ears sliced to resemble an elf's, and implants placed into people's heads and hands to resemble horns and scarab beetles were all uploaded to the account. So why do people voluntarily submit to these surgeries? Ethan Bramble, 21, lives on the NSW Central Coast and calls himself the world's most modified youth. After undergoing more than 40 body modification procedures and sporting about 150 tattoos. The 21-year-old has more than 65,000 followers across Facebook and Instagram, many of whom are obsessed with his look. Mr. Bramble has spent the better part of a decade hanging out in tattoo shops and has been working within the tattoo, piercing, and body modification industry since he was 13. The 21-year-old first started modification with stretches in his ears when he was 11 and admitted that he had an obsession with tattooing. By the age of 17, he started looking into heavy modification because he liked the way it looks. 4 years later, Ethan has a split tongue, his philtrum, the indented top part of the lip, cut and stretched. His labrae, the area under the bottom lip, cut and stretched, which has now been sewn up. He's had his nostrils punched, a procedure done with a cookie cutter type tool. His ears have been stretched, the insides of his ears have been punched, and each ear has been cut and shaped so that half is missing. He also had his eyeballs tattooed and his belly button removed. When asked by people why he wants to look the way he does, Mr. Bramble said it comes down to the way it to the look. Girls especially come up to me on the street and say, "Why? Just why?" he said. And I ask, why do you dye your hair? Why do you put makeup on in the morning? Why do you paint your fingernails? It's the way you want to look, your appearance. And I've always been a strong believer that you shouldn't really judge people for the way they look. The end product is 100% worth the torment if you're committed to it. Mr. Bramble had his tongue split when he was 17, and it was the most intense fucking modification he's ever done. In the days after the procedure, he was unable to eat or drink and even tried crushing up anti-inflammatory pills and attempting to take them with a baby syringe. It was 5 days of near death. You have to sleep upright and have a towel because you're constantly drooling, and if you lie down, you choke on your own spit and saliva and blood and die. It's definitely not a fun experience, he said. The 21-year-old said his belly button removal, which was done so he could get a stomach tattoo, was a particularly full-on experience. He cut my navel out in a big circle and all of my umbilical cord that was inside of me and told me to sit up and have a look. I could see my stomach lining every time I flexed or breathed, sort of protruding out of this hole. It was weird to see the inside of yourself. Mr. Bramble also said his eyeball tattoos were particularly weird and described it as the scariest thing he's ever done. To see a syringe come into your eye and enter your eyeball, it doesn't hurt because there's no pain receptors, so it's really a surreal feeling. You have one person holding your eyelids open, and it's up to you to stare at the wall at a certain spot. It's so stressful because if you move your eyeball when there's a syringe in there, you'll go blind. So that's definitely a really sketchy one.
If anybody is watching the video right now, all you're seeing is me just, holding my head and, rubbing my forehead and, grimacing vigorously.
I feel like that's a success on my part, then.
Keep going. I'm still here. I'm still on board.
While some studies link body modification with disorders such as body dysmorphia, everyone has different reasons for changing their bodies. A study from the University of Göttingen in Germany, sorry if I slaughtered that, found that there were 10 general psychological reasons for people modifying their bodies. Some use it to express spiritual enlightenment, resistance, or rebellion. Others seek to build up their pain threshold, seeing as body modification is usually done without anesthesia. Others use body modification to express their love of art or their sexuality. Mr. Bramble is used to being judged harshly because of his look, but he said it was after his eyeball tattoos done in black ink, so he looks like he's wearing scleras, that people really started to shrink away from him. People's perceptions of you change a lot, he said. You walk down the street and people cross the street to get away from you or think you're really scary or something. That first impression is everything, so even if you see me and you're looking at me trying to suss me out, your first impression is, I'm fucking terrified. I'm a weird looking dude, he said. As far as heavy modification goes, the only things Mr. Bramble has not been interested in is doing genital mutilation or removing his nipples, the procedures that other body modifiers have sought out. I've done everything that appeals to me, and I enjoy my member, so cutting it in half is probably something I don't really want to do, he said.
I mean, fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. The people that come in to get it done are the last people you'd expect. They're like older gentlemen, and maybe it's like a clique thing, because it's normally these people that work in offices and wear suits all day and have a 9-to-5 job that get these procedures done. The body modification industry is a new one, which means that the laws are yet to catch up with the largely unregulated procedures. Last week, the NSW police confirmed that there are currently no legislation for body modifications. There is currently no legislation for body modifications in NSW. However, members of the so-called skin penetration industry are required to follow public health regulations. The only specifically illegal part of the body modification industry is the use of anesthesia, a drug that is only supposed to be obtained and used by a registered anesthetist. So, they talk a little bit more about, like, legislation in that one, but you can see there's a commonality between the two. And then the last one, if that one got you, this one's gonna destroy you. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Do
your
worst.
This is, you can take this with a grain of salt because it's from the Daily Star.
Oh, great. The most reputable news source I know.
Right, but it's like there's so many pictures in it that I was just like, wow, okay. So, dailystar.co.uk. And the article was written by Ben Ewell, and it says, body mod fans are drilling holes in heads to expand their minds.
Oh, okay.
So this was published on the 21st of April. Trepanning, have you ever heard of the official name? Yeah, yes. Trepanning, the act of drilling a hole into your skull and allowing it to heal over, is one trend starting to gain more traction in the underground body mod scene. Body mod expert and the man responsible for promoting the bagel head movement.
Oh, come on.
Do you remember that?
No.
The bagel. Oh, okay. So
is that
that's
what
like
it's called?
No, there was one. There was a bagel head movement, and it was weird. And I would encourage anyone to look it up because I'm not going to focus on it. But yeah, that was a thing.
Okay.
And it was a Japanese thing.
Okay.
Ryoichi Karopi Maeda gave the Daily Star Online his take on the strange phenomenon. The process dates back to more than 8,000 years, but could still be a bridge too far for extreme modding, he said. Trepanation is simply the first step. I think the new modification of the brain of the skull is coming in the future, he said. Humans started trepanning a millennia ago. Why would they do this? I've been told it expands your mind, elevating your consciousness. It's still considered extreme modification in today's scene. It's mostly done underground because it's illegal in some places. Modding itself is already advancing at an alarming rate, with enthusiasts now exploring the idea of biohacking. This entails anything from implanting glowing lights under your skin to having a magnet surgically implanted into parts of your body. Karopi is notorious for having a very liberal view on modification, having traveled the world to meet people in unusual and extraordinary mods. But even he has concerns over trepanning. I don't recommend people try this. It's a very risky procedure. People I've met with holes in their heads seem happy, they enjoy it, but I certainly wouldn't recommend it to anyone. He advises people embrace the bagel head instead, which involves injecting saline under your skin of your forehead and causing it to swell. By placing the thumb in the center of the swelling pocket in the forehead, the bagel shape forms. I lied. I'm covering it. The process only lasts one night. According to Brope, it's completely harmless. In this country of Japan where modding is becoming very popular, trepanning is banned. He explained the people there have become very conservative after the earthquake and nuclear disasters. Those looking to push the limits of modification have to choose between going underground and embracing the very extreme polarized movement or waiting for more liberal laws currently being fought over in the courts to pass. But Brope insists the process is gaining huge popularity, with many raving over its depiction in comic books. In order to explore the concept, he drilled a hole in a deer skull himself, which put him off trying it personally. Trepanation has definitely opened my eyes to new ideas and trends within body modification, both in ancient history and as modding turns to the future.
So that one squicked me out way less, but that's because I first became aware of trepanning when I was pretty young, because they you've read the Golden Compass series, right? Oh my god, you would love it.
It's so... I've heard it's, really over... Never mind. I'm not getting into it.
Oh, it's okay. I read it when I was in probably middle school, and I really, really liked it. And
I saw the movie.
Actually, the movie's terrible.
I know. I saw
Girl. Don't let your opinions be formed by that movie. I take it back. I think I first read that in, elementary school, because going back in my own brain, I remember reading the third book in 5th grade. But, the first book is definitely the best one. If you're only going to read one of them, just read the first one. But, there's the whole thing about, trepanning. People are being, forcibly being subjected to trepanning. And I was like, what's this? I'm 10. And I, looked it up. So, I get it, and it's totally weird and fucked up, but, I think I'm, not desensitized to it exactly, but I'm, used to the idea. I don't know.
Have you ever been on a website that's called bmezine.com? I don't know if it still exists, so don't go there. Hold on, let me check this before I, tell people to go there.
Check this before you wreck this?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it still exists, so... BME Zine was a place where you could look at people's body mods, and some of them were really intense. And that's where I first saw the nasal punching, where it's a giant hole punch and they just punch it out.
I've seen that before. I don't know. I feel there are just so few body mods I could ever see myself doing.
I don't want any of them.
I think
I like tattoos.
The closest thing to I consider this closer to a body mod because it's a tattoo in a very, visible area as opposed to something that's, it's on your arm or your leg or whatever. But when I was younger, I was really into the idea of having, teeny-weeny little stars at the corners of my eyes. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a weeb, I guess. And,
mm-hmm. Yeah, you
are. I kind of was into those, dimple piercings. I wanted I wanted shiny eyes and shiny cheeks. Mm-hmm. But I'm obviously not doing that, so.
And I just wanted to, say one more thing about this, is if this... I think the thing that really, grabbed me about this topic is one of my favorite horror movies is about this, and it is called American Mary.
Ah, okay.
The whole movie is about illegal body modifications.
Okay.
And she is a med student who is... not able to afford school anymore, and she starts doing these body mods on the side to make money, but then they keep getting more and more and more extreme.
Okay.
And it's a really good movie. If you are a fan of Ginger Snaps, it's by the same directors who are a pair of twins, lovely pair of goth women twins called the Soska Sisters, and I adore them.
Very cool. I didn't know that was the same director. Okay.
I was doing a cosplay of her. I actually did do it. I never took pictures of it, so sorry about that.
You hecked up.
That's why I have the bone saw.
Oh, okay. Well, there it is.
And my giant syringe.
Doesn't
everyone have a bone saw laying around their home?
I mean, I do. I feel those you could both reuse someday for a Mekon related thing.
I could.
But no. Yeah, that was very interesting. I think, like, the eyeball thing was too much for me. We just got done talking about sclera lenses.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even make that connection.
No,
but,
I just was like, I was thinking about, like, if I saw a guy who had tattooed eyeballs walking down the street like that, like, would I think, because as, like, a cosplayer and someone that often wears colored contacts and stuff, I would just be like, oh, he's wearing scleras.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I would even think to be like...
He also has, like, a giant, like, 13 tattooed on his forehead and stuff.
Oh.
He's just kind of, like, a weird-looking dude.
I guess I'm imagining, like... I would expect that anyway from somebody who walks down the street wearing sclera lenses. But, like,
speaking of, like, heavy body mods, though, I feel like maybe it's appropriate to say, like, rest in peace, Rick Genest.
Yeah, I saw that. Alright, dude.
I had a real big crush on you, man. I'm sorry you couldn't stay with us.
He's perhaps at peace now.
I hope so. I truly hope so.
Thank you for putting that moment in here.
I don't know if it was, like, as heartfelt as it should be, but when I think body mods, I do think of him, and I was actually very, very upset to learn that he had passed.
I think that's justified, and I think, like, you can only ever come across as so heartfelt in, like, a recorded podcast, but, like, you know what you're feeling, and you know what your intentions are, and I think everyone else knows what our intentions are here, so. Yeah.
I don't mean to sound like, rest in peace, bro, sucks. But no, I really, I think it's, suicide's a big topic, and I'm not an expert on it, but I have had issues with it myself, and I am always sad when people succumb to depression.
Well, yeah.
We'll turn it around.
I don't know.
Now.
I'm not sure how to appropriately and respectfully rebound
fine.
from that.
That's okay. Hold on 1 second. I knew it was here. You're gonna laugh, but I had 2 different types of wine, so my second glass of wine is in a second glass, but it's identical to the first glass. So the only thing you'll notice is that the levels are largely different in my glasses now. They smell different. I don't want to mix them up.
That's fine.
Maybe I should leave that in. Like, just, that's...
Yeah.
I uplifted you. You guys, I'm a booze hound, and I tried to play it off like I was only having 1 glass of wine, but I'm having 2. Anyway.
Good job. So, for my topic today, I feel like this is off-brand for me.
I'm excited, because you did say that, and now I want to know what it is.
Maybe it's not. I think at its core, it's probably still off-brand, but it also feels like something I maybe wouldn't normally do, because I'm a girly girl, and I feel like there's something inherently masculine about this topic for some reason. So, this article is from the good old website mysteriousuniverse.org, and I chose this topic because I had, like, a vague recollection of a story I remembered hearing or reading or seeing somewhere a long time ago that I was, like, really gripped by. But there wasn't a whole lot of actual, like, concrete information about it, and it was, like, kind of hard to track down, so I had to broaden my topic a little bit and adjust my topic a little bit. And when I get to the part that I was initially gripped by, I will tell you. But what I landed on is the real gremlins of World War II. Is this a topic you're familiar with?
I want to say yes, but I don't know what you're going to say about it, so go ahead.
Okay, so this is I'm reading directly from this article, which is by Brent Swanser. It's a little bit long, but not too long, so.
No problem.
When most people hear the word gremlins, the first image that may pop into their heads is that of the strange reptilian creatures from the 1984 Joe Dante film of the same name, where the titular little monsters run amok and cause chaos within a small town. However, what some people may not realize is that these were actually based upon allegedly real entities which, during the Second World War and even before, plagued pilots and aircraft crew with all manner of mischief as they battled in the skies during one of the bloodiest eras of human history. Here, in the bloody skies of World War II, among the seemingly never-ending smoke, bomb blasts, strafing anti-aircraft fire, buzzing enemy aircraft, and death, the crews of various aircraft from all sides were faced with a new enemy. Bizarre, impish beasts that were said to infest aircraft and seemed to want nothing more than to create havoc and bring them down from the clouds. The origin of the modern term gremlin is disputed, but it's often said to derive from the Old English word grim, or grimme, Greme, which means to vex or annoy. It refers to a type of mischievous, gnome-like imp or demon, typically said to be around a foot tall, which probably has its roots in the old folklore of goblins and fairies. The original early representation of these creatures was that of skilled craftsmen with a superhuman proficiency with machinery of all types, and they were once credited by some with helping mankind along with our technology, such as in the creation of the steam engine, and even claims that they helped with Benjamin Franklin's work with electricity. Yet for all of the benevolent early folklore associated with the impish creatures, it was their penchant for mischief and mayhem that they would become most known for. The modern version of the gremlin is a malicious, trouble-making hellraiser, and has its origins with the British airmen, some of whom believed that there were miniature imps, gnomes, or fairies which seemed to show an intense interest in aviation and caused aircraft or navigational malfunctions. One of the first mentions of the creature can be traced back to an early reference to them in the early 1900s in a British newspaper called The Spectator, in which it was written, "The old Royal Navy Air Service in 1917 and the newly constituted Royal Air Force in 1918 appear to have detected the existence of a horde of mysterious and malicious sprites whose whole purpose in life was to bring about as many as possible of the inexplicable mishaps which, in those days as now, trouble an airman's life." The existence of such weird entities became truly popularized starting in 1923, when a British pilot crashed his plane into the sea and later reported that the accident had been caused by tiny creatures which had followed him aboard his plane and proceeded to create havoc aboard the aircraft, sabotaging the engine, messing around with the flight controls, and ultimately causing it to crash. The story spread, and it wasn't long before other British pilots also began to complain of being harassed by similar miniature troll-like creatures with a mastery of technology and machinery, which caused engine failures, electrical malfunctions, communication shutdowns, bad landings, freak accidents, and pretty much anything else that could possibly ever go wrong with an aircraft. Gremlins were said to engage in such a myriad of bad behavior as sucking the gas out of tanks through hoses, jamming radio frequencies, mucking up landing gear, blowing dust or sand into fuel pipes or sensitive electrical equipment, cutting wires, removing bolts or screws, tinkering with dials, knobs, or switches, jostling controls, slashing wings or tires, poking or pinching gunners or pilots, banging incessantly on the fuselage, breaking windows, and a wide variety of other prankish acts. There were even pilots who claimed that the creatures had telepathic powers and could create realistic illusions in a victim's mind, such as the appearance of the ground or a mountain emerging suddenly from the clouds. They were also sometimes reported to be seen sitting out upon the nose of the plane or the wings of the aircraft in mid-flight, tampering with the wings or even the engines. On occasion, the gremlins were said to shout, giggle, whisper, growl, or otherwise make noise so as to distract aircraft crews. In particular, gunners, as they were lining up their sights on an enemy, and pilots when performing maneuvers for which total concentration was a necessity. Such reports spread quickly throughout the ranks, and by the end of the 1920s, it seemed like any pilot who had ever had an aircraft problem of any kind had seen the things, and they were commonly reported throughout the Royal Air Force by pilots stationed in such far-flung places as Malta, the Middle East, and India. One of the most famous alleged gremlin accounts from this period was made by none other than the renowned American aviator, author, inventor, military officer, explorer, and social activist Charles Lindbergh, as he was engaged in his historic non-stop solo flight over the Atlantic from New York to Paris in May of 1927. Lindbergh had been flying his single-engine, single-seat plane, Spirit of St. Louis, from the Roosevelt Field in Garden City, New York, to Le Bourget Field in Paris, France, which was to be an epic 3,600-mile and 33.5-hour flight, and the first ever of its kind. In the ninth hour of being airborne, Lindbergh reported that he had suddenly felt somewhat detached from reality and found himself surrounded by several vaporous, strange-looking beings within the cramped confines of his tiny cabin, which spoke to him and demonstrated incredibly complex knowledge of navigation and flight equipment. Interestingly, in this case, rather than cause mischief, Lindbergh said that the gremlins actually kept him alert and reassured him that he would remain safe on his journey.
They're comfort gremlins.
Huh?
They're comfort gremlins. They here for you.
They are good. Pure. Kind. Lindbergh kept this bizarre experience to himself for years, until the account was finally published in his 1953 book, The Spirit of St. Louis. Interestingly, this would not be the only report of benevolent gremlin activity, as there were other accounts from time to time that told of the typically mischievous monsters helping pilots avert disasters or alerting them when to change course or altitude, which showed that there was more than one facet to whatever the things were. The actual physical descriptions of the gremlins varied rather wildly. In some cases, they were described as being little elfish beings similar to humans, wearing bright red or green double-breasted frock coats, old-fashioned hats with feathers, or pointed shoes. The skin color could be green, gold, pink, or red. Others gave the entities a more sinister appearance, saying that they looked animalistic, with hairy bodies, large pointed ears, deep red or even glowing eyes, and horns. Still other reports speak of gremlins as having hairless gray skin, being vaguely reptilian in appearance, and having enormous mouths filled with pointy teeth. There were cases that said they looked like jackrabbits, bull terriers, or some combination of both. In some cases, they were merely wispy entities, seemingly composed of mist or smoke. Some accounts mentioned webbed hands and feet, fins, or bat-like wings. Size descriptions also varied considerably, with gremlins said to be anywhere between a mere 6 inches tall all the way up to 3 feet in height. In some cases, they were said to have large feet with suction cups or even leather shoes with hooks, both of which enabled them to walk about on the outside of aircraft or to hang upside down. One common trait in all reports is that, through whatever means, gremlins were known to be able to adhere to the outer fuselage of planes and to withstand incredible temperature extremes, high altitudes, and violent winds. Gremlins and their bothersome antics were reported throughout the 1920s and 30s, but perhaps the period of most intense alleged gremlin activity was during the fierce fighting of World War II. Reports of gremlins were especially prolific among the UK's RAF units, especially the high-altitude photographic reconnaissance units, which flew perilous missions in unarmored Spitfires and Mosquitoes at great heights on photographic missions over enemy territory. It was during these harrowing missions, when pilots operated in bitter, biting cold as heat was redirected to the cameras to keep them warm, that the little monster tricksters were regularly seen and blamed for all manner of otherwise inexplicable technical troubles and woes. In some cases, mechanical problems would arise, only to mysteriously right themselves again as soon as the planes landed and the gremlins were gone. The Battle of Britain, an enormous air campaign waged against the United Kingdom by the German Air Force during the summer and autumn of 1940 in particular, saw many cases of reported gremlin activity. So much so, in fact, that the British Air Ministry even acknowledged the problem and made serious attempts to investigate the phenomenon. The ministry even went so far as to have a service manual written up by a, quote, gremlorist, pilot officer Percy Prune, which was an official document consisting of a list of the creature's exploits, how to placate or distract them, and various ways to avoid accidents due to their presence, such as not displaying bravado, arrogance, or overconfidence, which was thought to attract the creatures. There were also posters that warned of the malicious little monsters, as well as bulletins which often included the following ditty. Quote, "This is the tale of the gremlins as told by the PRU, at Benson and Wick and St. Evil, and believe me, you slobs, it's true. When you're 7 miles up in the heavens, that's a hell of a lonely spot, and it's 50 degrees below zero, which isn't exactly hot. And when you're frozen blue like your Spitfire, and you're scared of mosquito pink, when you're thousands of miles from nowhere and there's nothing below but the drink, it's then that you'll see the gremlins, green and gamboge and gold, male and female and neuter, gremlins both young and old. It's no good trying to dodge them. The lessons you learnt on the link won't help you evade a gremlin, though you boost and you dive and you jink. White ones will wiggle your wingtips, male ones will muddle your maps, green ones will guzzle your glycol, females will flutter your flaps, pink ones will perch on your perspex and dance pirouettes on your prop. There's a spherical middle-aged gremlin who'll spin on your stick like a top. They'll freeze up your camera shutters, they'll bite through your aileron wires, they'll bend, they'll break, and they'll batter, and they'll insert toasting forks in your tires. And that is the tale of the gremlins as told by the PRU, pretty ruddy unlikely to many, but a fact nonetheless to the few." At first, this seemed to be a phenomenon completely unique to the Royal Air Force, and it was often whispered among airmen that the gremlins were in league with the enemy, but it later became apparent that the enemy aircraft were also suffering from the creature's tomfoolery, and that they took no sides, taking equal glee in harassing both British and enemy aircraft alike. When the American allies came to British shores, they too began to experience the strange phenomenon. American pilots and airmen typically described seeing strange creatures out on the wings of the aircraft where they would fiddle around with the aileron, I probably said that wrong, aileron, which is the hinged flight control surface on the wing that allows it to roll or bank. So persistent were the stories of gremlins fiddling and tampering with the aileron of American aircraft that Americans often referred to the creatures as Yehudis, a famous violinist of the time, because they were always fiddling. You like that?
Yeah.
One American Boeing B-17 pilot during World War II, known only as LW, had a rather bizarre and harrowing experience with gremlins, typical of these encounters while engaged in a combat mission. The man reported that as he was taking the enormous plane higher, he could hear a strange sound coming from the engine, and instruments on the panel in front of him started going haywire. When the confused pilot looked outside to his right, he saw an freakish entity outside of the plane's window latched onto the plane that was described as 3 feet tall, with abnormally long arms, gray hairless skin, deep red eyes, a gaping mouth full of teeth, and pointed ears with tufts of black hair at the ends like owl ears, just staring at him from the wind and bitter cold beyond the glass. When the frightened pilot looked to the nose of the aircraft, he was astonished to see yet another one of these creatures apparently dancing about out there and pounding away haphazardly at the fuselage. The pilot thought at first that he was perhaps hallucinating or experiencing disorientation, but he reported that he felt sharp and in control of his senses. The pilot said that the strange creatures appeared to be laughing maniacally and that they gleefully cavorted about the outside of his plane, pulling on whatever they could get their clawed hands on, banging on the aircraft with all their might, and obviously trying their best to bring the plane down. After a bit of maneuvering, the pilot managed to shake the critters off his plane, although he would later say he had no idea if they had fallen to their deaths or merely jumped to another plane. LW was apprehensive about telling anyone about the frightening ordeal, but when he told a gunner friend of his about it, the gunner reported having had a similar experience on a training mission just a few days before. Interestingly, there is a rather bizarre incident pertaining to an American aircraft from 1939, before America's participation in the war, which may or may not be related to gremlins, but seems worth mentioning. And this is the story that I remember hearing that I thought was really crazy, but couldn't find a lot of info about. Allegedly, a transport plane left the Marine Naval Air Force Base in San Diego, California at around 3:30 in the afternoon in the late summer of 1939 on a routine flight to Honolulu with a crew of 13. Somewhere around 3 hours in the flight, it was reported that the aircraft made a sudden distress call, after which communications went dead. Despite the fact that its radio had gone completely silent, the plane managed to arrive back at its base, yet the way it limped in for a bumpy, sloppy emergency landing and the heavy damage on its exterior that almost looked like missile damage immediately worried the ground crew. As soon as the damaged plane had skidded to a halt on the runway, crews moved in to investigate. What they found would horrify them. An inspection of the craft's interior uncovered the bodies of 12 of the plane's crew, all of them displaying gruesome, gaping wounds of unknown origins. Further adding to the strangeness was the fact that the whole cabin reeked of a wretched sulfuric stench, and there were empty bullet shells strewn about the floor of the cockpit as well as the pilot and co-pilot's empty firearms, indicating that the dead men had frantically fired at something. The only survivor was the co-pilot, who had managed to land the plane despite being severely wounded himself. He would die later at a hospital before having any chance to give an account of what exactly had happened aboard the doomed flight. Reports of gremlins and their knack for hiding aboard planes to sabotage them persisted throughout World War II from all sides and nations involved in the conflict, more often than not by experienced pilots and aircraft crew that were sober, level-headed, and rational. What could have been at the heart of these accounts? What were all of these people seeing or experiencing? It's often pointed out that the lack of adequate pressurization of aircraft back in those days most likely led to hallucinations, which were then shaped by the stories of little trickster prankish imps with a tendency to sabotage or damage machinery. There could also have been some element of, quote, passing the buck, so to speak, or deflecting blame for human errors by blaming accidents on these fantastical creatures. This could have helped build morale among the men, as it would have been more constructive to blame the gremlins for aircraft mishaps rather than accuse members of their own squadron. Yet those who claim to have seen the gremlins or to have been the victims of their attacks insist that they were no figment of the imagination and were in fact very real. Survivors of the war who have lived to tell the tale have no doubt in their minds that gremlins were a very real threat and that they were no more folklore or spooky legend, adamantly refusing that all cases can be explained away by mere hallucinations or human error. Nevertheless, these sorts of reports largely fizzled out in the wake of the war's end, and by the 1950s there was very little talk of gremlins among airmen, perhaps largely due to the fact that the military began to strictly discourage rumors or talk of the creatures, calling it unprofessional and morale-inhibiting behavior. Most mention of gremlins nowadays Most mention of gremlins nowadays is made half-jokingly when an aircraft experiences trouble or if machinery breaks down or malfunctions for no apparent reason. So, was the gremlin phenomenon all just hallucinations, folklore, overactive imaginations, and tall tales that managed to spread out across aircraft crews of various nationalities to lodge itself squarely into contemporary myth? Or could there have been something else behind the phenomena? Could these have been somehow real creatures that gave aircrews a new enemy to face in the heat of battle? If these gremlins were indeed real entities, what could they have been? Could they have been fairies, ghosts, demons, a real animal of some sort, aliens, or something beyond our dimension? Whether they were real or not, gremlins were indeed very real to many of the brave men who served to risk their lives for their countries high in the treacherous skies of the Second World War. Perhaps next time you're flying in a plane that experiences a sudden technical difficulty or uncommon turbulence, you may just want to look under your seat or peer out the window just to be sure. You may just see some gremlins peering right back.
I'm just, hearing that, have you ever seen that bird that's, trying to whistle the X-Files theme, but it's, getting it super wrong?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna play it because I think it fits here.
While you're looking it up, I think
it's this one. Hold on.
Did it play it?
Yeah, can you not hear it?
No.
Poop. Okay, hold on. That sucks. Maybe I'll just send it to you.
Edit it in.
I will, and then I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Go ahead with what you were going to say.
I was going to say, it just, as I was, reading about this, my brain clicked two and two together, and I remembered that Twilight Zone episode where the guy sees something out on the wing of the plane.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, shit, that's it.
One.
That's what that came from. I always, when I was a kid, thought that was just, a weird story for no reason about something on the wing of the plane, which is terrifying enough, but now it has new context.
I have heard the sort of jokes about gremlins in the plane when, there's been plane malfunctions.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say it was my grandfather who made that joke.
Oh, yeah?
Before, yeah. And for some reason when you said gremlins in World War II, I don't know. I think I was just, totally mixing it up in my mind with something else. Because I thought... I don't know. There's this photo from, it's, the ghosts of World War II, and there's, this super creepy photo.
Mm.
And, that's what I thought you were going to talk about.
Oh, no. Actual gremlins.
Yeah. I was, so I've decided, while editing, I get really mad at myself when I'm, when you're talking and I'm typing, because my keyboard is so fucking loud that you can totally hear it. And I'm it's so rude to you, but I do like to look up the things that you're, I like to get visual, so I was if it looked like I was disinterested and on my phone, I was just Googling the gremlins, and can we appreciate those propaganda posters?
They're so cool. I was going to say, if you haven't yet, and if anybody listening to this wants to look it up, if you Google, World War II gremlins, and just, switch your Google search over to the images, there's some rad, they made real propaganda posters about this, whether they were real or not. They sure treated it like it was.
Yeah, they're awesome. That was cool. That was fresh. That was unique. I feel like we have done, I'm going to pat ourselves on the back right now, and I'll probably edit this out, but I feel like we have done a good job picking topics that people don't expect and other people are not talking about right now.
Yeah, not that that's necessarily, been something I've gone out of my way to do, necessarily, but, you're right, we have, I think, kept it a little bit different.
Fresh.
Yeah.
I think part of it, though, is that we're so exposed to all this stuff because we're always looking for it, so that when we see something that really interests us, it's we're pretty desensitized or we're just exposed to everything else, so we see something special, it really is special.
Right. I was going to say, I like I mentioned before, I was initially really drawn in by the story of this, bizarre massacre on an airplane that, was never solved. And I couldn't find any, there's just not a lot of info about it out there, but the, most common thing that came up when I tried to search it was these, gremlins. And I was like, okay, well, now my topic is the gremlins.
Yeah, I need to know more.
But that's, it's all, crazy. It's kind of lighthearted, I guess. But, I came at it initially from a place of, these people...
A massacre.
Died viciously, yeah. So if anyone's got any information, ask your grandparents. Ask your grandparents about gremlins on the planes and get back to us.
Yeah, please do.
What is our superstition today?
I know, I was like, I'll just pick a random one every time, but sometimes like, I don't want to read that. I don't like that one. It always opens to one particular page.
Maybe you should just do that one and get it over with.
I did.
Oh.
It was rope.
Oh, well, never mind, Brope.
Yeah. Let's do Tempting Fate.
Oh, God. Okay. I feel like we're tempting fate by just doing this one.
By tempting fate, yeah. Tempting Fate. The fear that my dog is crying at the door now, but you know, I'm almost done, Moose. The fear that celebrating one's good fortune in some way invites the special attention of malevolent spirits, which is the motivating force behind a great many well-known taboos and superstitions. To be on the safe side, one should never sing too loudly the praises of children, livestock, a person's health, or anything else that is held precious, as the presumption implicit in the boasting is that one is disregarding possible interference by supernatural forces. Many people will show distinct unease if someone directs lavish praise in their direction, and may attempt to ward off evil by touching wood or iron and making the sign of the cross, spitting, saying God bless, or taking some other precautionary measure recommended by long-standing tradition. Specific examples of actions to be avoided include never bringing a newly acquired cradle or pram into the house before an expected baby is safely delivered. People do that shit all of the time. Like, how are you going to set up a nursery?
Mm-hmm.
Never asking a fisherman when he is where he is going when he is about to set sail. Never admitting to being very well if someone inquires after one's health, and never wishing actors and actresses good luck when they're about to go on stage.
I was going to say, this is the break a leg thing.
Break a leg. Yeah. I feel like we were both like, we're going to have wine. I always have fucking wine during the podcast. But we were like, we're going to have wine to celebrate episode 10 and like finally getting back together to record a podcast. But maybe we shouldn't be so proud of it.
Oh, we should not. We're gonna jinx it. We're tempting fate.
Touch some iron. God bless. Touch some wood.
Wood.
Yeah, my desk is wood. Like, I'm already touching
wood,
it.
but you know.
Yeah, mine's definitely cheap IKEA wood.
Well, this like I have like the like goofiest setup for this. Like I'm in bed, but I have the microphone and laptop and all that stuff propped up on a like stool that's sitting on top of the bed. So like the stool,
we make it work.
The stool is wood.
We make it work. I'm just in my office, but we have like not done anything to make our office look nice, and also like Nova and I have back-to-back like setups. So like my computer is here, my PC or my like console is here, and my TV is here. Then you can kind of see like his TV is right there, and then behind me is his desk. So we're just like back-to-back, and it just doesn't look that nice. Somebody likes to have a lot of cans on his desk at all times.
Yeah, you know, I know the type.
Yeah, a certain guy that I know, like, I only live with one guy, and it's just one of them.
Just the one.
It's the cat.
I mean, he's gonna learn it from somewhere, right?
He's a beer fiend.
Well, I think... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, thank you for joining us. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I was just gonna remind everybody that we do have our second film exchange coming up. So you still have a little bit of time if you want to watch the 2 movies and then join us for our film exchange episode. I watched Crimson Peaks, and Spectre watched Frankenhooker. And we're going to talk about it, and it's going to be great. We'll be recording that sometime soon, and so you can expect that.
And just so you guys know, we have social media that you can follow. We have a Twitter, which is ominous underscore glitch. Then there's Ominous Glitch on Instagram. Then there's Ominous Glitch on YouTube, where we always post our Discord call or video chat. So if you wonder what we look like, or you just kind of want some company while you're cleaning your house or something, we are here for you. We have a Ko-Fi if you feel like we're doing well and you'd like to donate. It's KO-FI, and it's the 13 club, and 13 is in Roman numerals, so that's XIII club.
Did you say ominousglitch.com already?
I was about to. Why don't you?
Oh, yeah, we have our home base is ominousglitch.com, where if after you listen to an episode you want to go back and revisit one of the articles we talked about or check out any of other supplementary material, we post links and videos and anything that's relevant. That's also where you can go to find the link to our YouTube, different places to listen to this. I also post a lot of reviews for like comic books and stuff. Pulp Added, who is my fiance, occasionally does like film reviews and things like that, op-ed pieces. So there's always something new to read. I'm kind of on fire. I did a comics review yesterday, and I wrote one today to go up very soon also.
Nice.
So if you are into reading about other stuff that is vaguely spooky and or pop culture related, check that out as well.
Eventually I will start writing there too, but my job is becoming busier all of the time, so hopefully someday. Maybe. If I ever make those goth videos, that's where they will go. Yeah,
you should even just do like a short written post with like lots of photos or something. Might be easy.
Yeah, I could. I still like when I finish the book Annihilation, I want to do a comparison between the film and the book.
Yeah, I'm into that. I'm still waiting to hear your final
I have not been reading because at night I've just been like a total slug, and I've been reading about witchcraft, which is not a slug thing.
I haven't too, no way.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I'm like trying to get further into my craft. So I have been reading more about that, and then also like sometimes when I get into bed, I like to just watch TV.
Yeah, man, I feel you.
So I've been rewatching It's Always Sunny because the new season is either already started or is about to start.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, it's terrible. I love it.
Well, all
right.
Thanks again, guys. I hope you'll join us next week.
Thank you so much. Also, like, thank you for sticking around for 10 episodes if you have. Thank you if you just showed up. And thank you for almost, feel like, I don't know, maybe by the time we put this up, don't jinx it, we're going to have 1,000 plays on SoundCloud.
That would be crazy cool.
Like, why are you listening to this? Who's listening to this? Apparently Amsterdam. Shout out to Amsterdam.
Shout out to Amsterdam.
All right. Okay, yeah.
Do you have?
I was going to think of something stupid to say.
You said that we got 2 in at the beginning of the episode, didn't we?
I know. I said creep it real already.
Creep
I think
real.
the passion is gone.
But creep it real was so good.
All right, so
you can say it again.
All right, creep it real, everyone.
All right, bye.
Bye.